Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for Bookshare 101, getting started with Bookshare. We're really looking forward to spending this time with you. So presenting today are going to be myself, Christine Jones, Associate Director of Global Literacy at Benetech, mostly focused on Bookshare, specifically outreach and support around Bookshare, and my colleague Laura Ronberg, who's Associate Relationship Manager with Benetech, also mostly focused on Bookshare. So we're looking forward to being with you today. And just to go through our agenda really quick, we're going to go through an overview of Bookshare. Laura will actually take us through some slides to just cover some basics about Bookshare, and then I'll jump into some demonstrations, and then we should have plenty of time for questions and answers. I'm going to go through a couple of slides first and then turn it over to Laura. So the problem that we're addressing today is that reading is a fundamental part of learning, and this is even true when learning is taking place in the very odd circumstances under which we all find ourselves currently. But reading is fundamental, is absolutely a very important part of learning, and that's as much true now as ever. But many students aren't really, many students need materials in a format other than standard print. Standard print isn't going to work for them for various reasons, so they need the ability to have the same content but in a different format, alternative formats. Sometimes it's easy to think just turning content into digital format fixes those issues for students, but that's not always true. If students have issues with text in print and in printed books, for example, they're going to have the same issues with print on a screen unless there are additional accommodations or provisions made. And that's the point of the content that we'll talk about today. And then teachers' ability to retrofit materials and remediate materials is very limited, especially in this current climate. So that adds complexity to the situation. So students need an easy way to provide ebooks to students in formats that they can read. And that's where Bookshare comes in. From here, Laura's going to go take us through some Bookshare basics.
Okay, great. Thanks, Christine, and welcome everybody. So basically, Bookshare is an ebook library that makes reading easier for people with reading barriers. And those are reading barriers such as dyslexia, blindness, visual impairment, or a physical disability. So Bookshare offers all the content and ways that work for them. All of our books can be listened to, read out loud, following along with the audio and highlighted text. Sometimes you might just need a larger font type or Braille files. We currently have over 900,000 titles, and it's a very vast collection. It's textbooks, books for assigned and pleasure reading, books for upskilling, if someone wants to learn a new skill. There's study guides for driver's license manuals, GED, SAT, prep courses, books that you would find in any commercial library. Membership is free for all qualified U.S. students. Bookshare is funded by the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Special Education Programs, and we're going to go over in a second who qualifies for Bookshare. For someone who is not a student, it is $50 a year for unlimited access, 24/7 access to all the titles. And there's a lot of different ways to read the books. We're going to go into some of the different devices, but you can really customize the book to work for whatever works best for the student. There are many reading options for Bookshare: Chromebooks and computers, iPads and iPhones, Android devices and tablets. So lots of different options, several free options. Then there are other options that are available for a small fee. Bookshare offers what we call our Bookshare web reader, which the book just opens in the browser on a Chromebook or a PC or a Mac. There are extensions that can be added to it that enhance the experience. Then there are also several other mobile apps, Dolphin Easy Reader, which is a great free app, CaptiVoice and Voice Dream Reader are other ones that our members really like, that they offer a lot of options for customizing the audio, the visuals, the different voices. And so again, it's often very individual to the person of what reading experience works best for them. So a lot of different options there. There are two main types of accounts. The organizational account is typically what a school or an educator would create with Bookshare. On those accounts, the teachers, who we refer to as sponsors, add their qualified students, who are the Bookshare members, and assign books to them. The students get their own login and password. They sign in, they find the books the teachers have assigned to them, and then read them in the device of their choice. Now, students can only read the books that have been assigned to them by their teacher. We also offer an individual account that the student can be given. They're already on your account. The parent signs off, giving permission if the student is under 18. And then in that, if the student is also on your school account, the student can then read any book in the full Bookshare collection in addition to the books that are assigned to them. Now, a person can also have an individual account that's not linked to a school account. The parent or the individual provides proof of disability and then can read any book on the collection. For the organizational accounts, there's no documentation that needs to be provided, sent to us, other than when the teacher is adding the qualified students, you check a box of what type of disability the student has, and that you can attest and provide proof that that student does meet the Bookshare qualifications for membership. Bookshare operates under copyright law, not special education law, but it's under copyright law, which was recently revised. The law states that an eligible person is someone who is blind or has a visual impairment or perceptual or reading disability, rendering them unable to read printed works to substantially the same degree as a person without an impairment or disability, or is otherwise unable through a physical disability to hold or manipulate a book. The law further states that a competent authority, that's someone who possesses professional experience in making such determinations, the competent authority attests that the student meets one of these criteria to be a Bookshare member. If a student is already a member of Learning Ally or the National Library Service, they follow the same qualification, the same law as we do, so that is an automatic qualification for Bookshare. So again, it's whoever is a professional who has experience and can attest if the student has either the visual or reading disability or physical disability, they can then make the determination that the student is eligible for Bookshare. Oh, and one thing when I mentioned about copyright law and not special education, students do not need an IEP or 504 plan to be a Bookshare member. Many of our members do, but that alone in itself is it's not a requirement, and it also doesn't guarantee eligibility for Bookshare.
Great. Thanks, Laura. I was just trying to answer some of the questions in
Sure.
the Q&A and looking at those. Good questions. I'm glad you addressed the IEP 504 issue, because that was one that did come up. So just to reiterate about qualifications, this is basically the guidance that we're given under copyright law as far as who qualifies for Bookshare. So we ask that you all read this information and make your best determination on a student-by-student basis as to whether they meet these criteria. We actually can't make that determination about a student at Bookshare, but we trust that you'll make the right decision for each student. And as Laura said, when you're signing up a student for Bookshare, we actually ask, and you'll see it when I do the demonstration of adding a student, we ask if they're served under an IEP or if they're served under 504, but only so that we can keep record of that in our system. And it is possible to enroll someone in Bookshare who has neither plan, though we do find that most students who qualify for Bookshare are being served currently under one of those two plans. So it's most common that one of those does apply, but we realize there are going to be some situations where neither applies. There is one specific subcategory of books in Bookshare that are textbooks from a federal repository called the NIMAC National Instructional Materials Access Center. That was set up by IDEA 2004, and as a result, it's actually only available to students with IEPs. So that particular repository of textbooks, which can be available through Bookshare, are only available to students with IEPs. So that's the only time that it really makes a difference what type of plan a student is served under. And that's not in our control. It's an IMAC restriction. So that's the only time it really matters. But generally, the only other thing that matters is that a student has to have a qualifying condition to access Bookshare. And so this is how the law defines what a qualifying condition is. And so we just ask that you are familiarize yourself with these qualifications and make your best determination for each student. So, all right. I think, okay, go ahead, Laura.
It's really easy to get started with Bookshare. The teacher or educator creates the organizational account on bookshare.org. You log in, you add your qualified students, you search through the collection and find the books you want to assign, which you can either do one at a time or create a reading list of multiple books to assign. The student or with the help of the parent, they then sign in with the login that you have provided when you add them to the account. They look at the website, they see the list of books that have been assigned to them, and if they want to read the book immediately in their web browser, they just there's a button that says Read Now, which we will demonstrate next to the book, and the book opens in the browser, and the student is reading in minutes. So it's a very simple process.
Okay, so now we're at the part where we're going to do some demonstrations. I was just starting to try to familiarize myself with the questions so we can try to make sure we cover all these, and hopefully we will in this next part. So I'm going to stop sharing the slides and share my screen so that I can go through basically how Bookshare works. Okay, so I am currently showing the Bookshare website. Hopefully that's what you're all seeing. And let me just hide the controls here for a second. There we go. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to log in to my teacher account that is going to look very similar to what teachers will log into to be able to access Bookshare. So it's an organizational account, and over here on the left, I'm in the My Bookshare page, and that is basically your landing page. Everything that you're going to need to do pretty much in Bookshare, you're going to want to access from your My Bookshare page. And over here on the left side, the links that you really need the most are going to be your members tab, and that's what we call students. We actually serve adults. We allow adult organizations to sign up for Bookshare as well, which is why we don't call our members students, because they're not all students. So members are the individuals with the qualifying conditions who are going to benefit from the books. Sponsors is the list of teachers on the account, and you can add as many teachers as you would like. And we definitely recommend adding, all of the teachers that support a student. So maybe they're subject teachers for English language arts or history, whatever classes they might have, because they can also log in and assign books to the student. They don't need to know everything about how Bookshare works, but they can have a login to be able to go in and either assign a book individually to a student or add it to a reading list for them. So we definitely recommend adding as many teachers as you think makes sense to this account to be able to support the students on the account. The only other link here that you really probably are going to need is this My Reading Lists link, and we'll talk about reading lists and how to use those. But to start out with, I'm going to go to the Members tab, and I'm going to add a member. I'm going to add a new student so that you can all see the process. I'm going to show you how to add a student, how to assign a book, one book, how to assign a list of books, and then I'm going to log in on a different browser as that new student and show you how they'll access the books so that you'll have all of that when you leave today. So this is the members list. I have a bunch of fake students on here already. I'm going to go ahead and select this person with a plus sign at the very top and add a new student. So here we go. You get a dialog box, and I'm gonna put in just another fake student name. Last name is going to be Demo. We do require that you enter the student's birth dates. We do need to keep track of the ages of the students who are using Bookshare. So I'm just going to pick one from my list of previously used birth dates. So let's see, this student is 8, so that makes them 12 years old. So I'm just going to say they're in 6th grade. And then you're going to want to assign a username and password. This is how a student is going to log in and access the books that you share with them. Oops. And I always just make the username and password the same thing so that I remember them. But the username can be whatever a student will be able to remember. Maybe they already have an email address through school. It's a great idea here to use an actual email address, though it doesn't have to be an email address at this stage. But later on, if they want to upgrade to a full individual membership in Bookshare, they're going to have to change their username to an actual email address. So rather than them at some point having to learn to use a new username, you could start out with that email address right here as their username. But it doesn't have to be an email address. I believe it has to have a certain number of characters, and but you can use a student ID or a student's first name and last initial. The system will tell you if it doesn't meet the criteria, and you can just keep entering characters until it meets the criteria. But anyway, it can be pretty much anything here. And then the password does have to be 8 characters, and it has to have a letter and a number. That's kind of basic internet security protocol now. So those are the restrictions there. But this student, I'm just going to use the same thing for the username and password. The student is always added to your quick list whenever you add a student. If we have time, we'll cover what that means. And then you can use these district and school fields if you'd like, but you don't have to. Those are optional. Then down here, we do need to know what type of disability the student has that qualifies them for Bookshare. This is a required field. And then here is where you indicate whether they're served, they have an IEP or they're served under 504. You can see it's not a required field, though we do really want to know if the student has one of these two types of plans. And as I mentioned before, if a student is trying to get access to that subset of books in the collection called NIMAC sourced textbooks, they'll have to have that box checked. So that would be only for students with IEPs. So then I select save. It should be processing. There we go. So it says I've added them to my roster. Would I like to assign a book now? And I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah. As a matter of fact, that's the whole reason I'm adding the student, because I need to get them a book quickly. So I'm just going to say, the student needs Hatchet for a class. So here we go. Here's Hatchet. And at the bottom of my screen, I have to make my box a little smaller. There we go. I have assign and close or assign and add more. For now, I'm just going to assign and close, though I could assign more individual books to the student if I wanted. So that's just a quick way to assign one book to the student. The next thing I'm going to show you are the lists of books that Bookshare makes available. And we've already curated a lot of lists that you can share. And the easiest way to access these and show these off to you is using the Browse button at the top of the screen. So Browse, and then you'll see right away there are a few lists here, New York Times bestsellers for children, etc. But I like to go ahead and go into the for kids section and then the popular series. So I'll just do that again so you can see how I got there. So the purple button so I'm in the Browse section, and I go to for kids and then popular series. And here you'll see all the series, many of the series that are known and loved by students and teachers alike. I'm going to go ahead and go to the middle grades since my student is a 6th grader. You can see there are lots of fun series here, the Harry Potter series, the Heroes of Olympus, the I Survived, the Kane Chronicles, The Last Kids on Earth, Percy Jackson, a number of really great series. So let me just grab a couple of these. This one looks fun. The Stink series. This one has 8 books. And I'm going to start out by just subscribing to this list so that I bring it into my account, because I'm just basically in the general Bookshare page right now. So the buttons at the top, there's one for subscribe and one for copy. For now, I'm going to just show you the subscribe feature. And that's that little button that looks like a backwards Wi-Fi symbol. So this is to subscribe to the list. And then it's going to want, I must have subscribed to this list previously because I already have 2 students who are benefiting from this list, but I want to add the student I just added to my Bookshare account, student 4321. So I selected the add student members button, and now I'm going to select my student 4321 and add that student. So now you can see that this student is assigned to this reading list. I can go back and grab any other lists, back to the browse. I can grab any other lists. In fact, one of the things I wanted to show you is we have books grouped by Lexile level, and we also have a lot of wonderful level readers. So those might be of interest to many of you. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and grab a Lexile level. So let's say the student is reading at the 800 to 890 list, or sorry, level of Lexile. This list has 150 titles on it, and so that's a lot of great books that I can share with my student that are right in their reading level. I'm going to go ahead and subscribe to that list, just the way I did the other one. And here I need to add my new student. I need to add a member. And here's my student 4321, and add that student. And so now I've added that student to the list as well, to this reading list. Lastly, quickly, let me just show you while I'm here, under the For Teachers section, in the leveled readers, there's a lot of accelerated reader lists as well. So here's the middle grade collection. Let me go ahead and grab that for my new student because these are all in his or her reading level. Now, this is a good example of when it might make sense to make a copy of the list rather than to subscribe to it. And that's that other icon up here. That's because this list has 845 titles on it. It's a very long list. So if I make a copy of it, instead of subscribing to it, I can modify it. I can take books off the list so that I can shorten it down, or remove books that maybe wouldn't be of interest to my student. The other thing that's nice about these lists, though, is you can use them as just a way to find great books. So you can assign any of these books individually to your student too. So, for example, the Volcanoes book here, I can select the Assign button, and I can find my student 4321 and assign that individual book to them if I don't want to, give them the access to this whole list. I can also add it to a reading list that I've created for the student specifically. In fact, let me go back and go into my Bookshare again. And I'm going to go to my reading lists. And I'll show you if I were interested in creating a list of books specifically for the student. So creating my own list of books, or the student's own list for reading. So I'd select the little plus sign at the top. I can make it any title. I can name it anything I want. For now, I'll just name it the name of the student. But one thing that's really important when you create a reading list, you then have to share it with the student. Just because I named it the student's name doesn't mean the student is automatically going to get access to it. And so the system here is reminding me, you don't have any members associated with this list. So there aren't going to be any students getting a chance to enjoy this list right now. So I selected the Add Members button, bring up my 4321. And then there we go. And then now it's going to also give me a chance to add titles, because currently this is just a shell of a list. There are no books on it. So I can add books. Let's go with, let's see, Harry Potter. And I'm just going to pick a couple of the Harry Potter books. Of course, Bookshare compiled the whole collection, so I could share it that way. But if I just want to share a few of these, I can do that as well. And then save and close. So I basically added the students. I found some great books for them, and I assigned some books just as individual books. And in other cases, I assigned entire lists to my student. And I can quickly check on my members tab. I can check this student, what has been made available to them. In the members tab, if I go to the pencil icon, or sorry, go to the last name, select the last name. You'd select the pencil icon if you need to edit something, but the last name brings up a dashboard. So I can see now that I assigned 2 books to the student, and I can also see the reading list to which the student has been assigned. So I can see the 3 reading lists. There's the one I made for the student. Here's that Stink series, and here's that Lexile series. So I can see all of that. Under downloaded books, there's nothing here yet, but eventually I'll be able to see in my account whether the student has actually accessed any of the books as well. I'll be able to see what books they downloaded in what format and on what day. And so right here, even from here, we can tell that I'll be able to see this information, but I can't currently because there aren't any downloads associated with the student. So I'm going to jump over now to a new browser. And let me make sure I'm, okay. So now I'm going to jump over to a different browser and log in as that new student. So, okay, so I've logged in as the student. I get a welcome screen. I have a dashboard down here. And let's first go and take a look. I'm the student. I'm logging in. Let me see what books I've been assigned. Okay, I see Hatchet and the Volcanoes book. And I also see that I have 3 reading lists. So here they are. So I can open up any of those lists and start reading any of those books, or I can just pick one of these assigned books. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab Hatchet. And you'll see the students have a couple options here. They have this Read Now button. That appears on about 99% of the books in Bookshare. There are some books that are just too large. They're likely textbooks with a lot of images, and they're too large for our Bookshare web reader to open them. So that Read Now button will not be there in that case. But most books in Bookshare offer the ability for the student to read it with Bookshare web reader, which is this Read Now button. And I want to point out that I'm doing this in Chrome because Chrome is one of the browsers that supports that reading with Bookshare web reader with text-to-speech reading and word highlighting. So Safari, Chrome, and the new Edge, the latest Edge browser, all support the Bookshare web reader with text-to-speech reading and word highlighting. If the student is using any other browser, they can use it. They'll have to use an accompanying tool to actually read the books out loud, because those browsers, like the older Edge and Firefox, they don't actually support text-to-speech and word highlighting as of yet. But the other option a student has is to download the book, and you'll see that every book, I think Laura mentioned at the outset, every book is available as a Microsoft Word document. So they can select Word here and they can download it, or they can download it in EPUB, which is a format that can be used with the Books app on an iPad or the Books app on a Mac, and in a number of other tools as well. Read EPUB. Those are the primary ways that students will access their book. For now, just to show you, I'm going to open it up with the Read Now button in Bookshare web reader. Okay, this is the book Hatchet. So, and it actually opened up to a particular chapter, but usually it opens up to the very beginning of the book, which is some copyright information. So you can use the table of contents up here, which is this little rectangular icon with the bulleted list looking feature, and then just select a chapter to read. So I'll just pick this chapter here. There are some settings you can select. The student can select the size of the fonts. There are some color scheme options, margin sizes. You can speed up or slow down the rate of speech. You can select, I have 2 voice options, a female and a male, and I can show you both of those or play those both for you. So I'm just going to select the, oops, did I? Hang on a minute. Let me make sure I did this correctly. Yeah, okay. Okay, I'm going to select the speech button here.
105. 12. The fish spear didn't work. He stood in the shallows and waited, again and again.
Okay, so that's the female voice that I have access to. It's dependent on the device that you have. So I'm going to show you, I'll let you hear the male voice, and then I'm going to show you another option, which I think has actually better voices.
He stood in the shallows and waited, again and again. The small fish came closer and closer.
Okay, so that one's a little better in my opinion, but as far as voices, we definitely recommend you try a lot of different apps. We can refer you to different apps that can be used to read Bookshare books, because
He stood in the shallows and waited.
Inevitably, there'll be one that works for every student. But I'm going to turn on an extension. Laura mentioned it when she did the overview. It's called Read and Write. It's the little purple puzzle piece at the top of my screen. Let's see, hide the controls. Okay, so it's an extension that's available in Chrome, the new Edge, and in Safari. And then it lives at the top of your screen, and you can turn it on. And what it does is adds additional functionality to Bookshare Web Reader, and it has more voice options and better color selections. I must be having internet issues because it's taking a minute here to actually turn on. There we go. Okay. So it brings up this toolbar that you'll see here. There is a free trial available for this tool, and even after the free trial is over, all of these buttons on the left are still available. The stuff on the right gets grayed out, and so it isn't available, but the feature that you'll need for this, for reading the books, is still going to be available even after the free trial is over. So we love this tool. It's got a lot of nice functionality. So I'm just going to select some text and press play.
The fish spear didn't work. He stood in the shallows and waited, again and again. The small fish came closer and closer and a long time after time.
Okay, so that's an example of the book being used, read in Bookshare Web Reader with the Read and Write extension laying over on top of it. So you notice that the voice is a little better, and there are other voice options too in this tool. So you can try a few different ones and see what the student likes. Let's see, we're running out of time, so I won't do that now. There are also options for coloring, and a lot of nice features there, so that's another thing that we recommend. Quickly, I just want to show you a couple more things in this as I'm logged in as the student. Two important things here. So after a student has tried Bookshare Web Reader, maybe they might want to try out reading on other tools. If they select this button, when they're logged in, there's a button that says Discover Ways to Read Our Books. If they go in here, it's a reading tool wizard, and they can look for another tool that works for them. So maybe they have an iPhone or an iPad. And then this page here has 3 recommended tools. These are all apps available for iPhone and iPad. And then if you select one, it comes up with a page of detailed instructions and a video of how to read Bookshare books on that tool. So this is, we highly recommend all 3 of these tools, but Dolphin Easy Reader happens to be free. So that one is particularly valuable, we think, but lots of our members love Voice Dream Reader as well. So definitely you can check out all these apps. They have other voice options. They have a lot of really nice features. So check out those apps so you can find the experience that works best for your student. The other button here that I want to call out when a student is logged into their account is Read More for Free, the green button. And then if they select this sign up link, they get to a page where with a parent's help, they can complete this form. And if their student is under 18, it's going to require some parent and guardian input here. And then the student enters this new username, which is an email address, as I mentioned earlier. This is for them to upgrade to a full individual membership. And the nice thing about this way of doing it, the parent can log in with the child and do this at home. So that's easy. In addition, once the student completes this process and they log into Bookshare, they'll log into Bookshare with this new username and password that they're setting here. But you'll also have the ability to help them reset their password and see what their username is. You can see that in your account, your Bookshare account. And then you can share books with this student because they're still connected to your school account. You can assign books, you can share reading lists, you can do all that. But they can also search for all their own books and access any book in the collection that they want to access this way too. So just once again, the best and quickest way to bring this new type of membership about is to select the Read More for Free button. And then that takes them to where they can add that individual membership to their account. So let's see. I know there's a bunch of questions. Let's see if we can go through some of them. So the question about the NIMAC, they're just another category of books within Bookshare. I'll just show you an advanced search. If you want to, you can search specifically the NIMAC books. They're here. So we can bring up a few here. You can see that I'm logged in currently as a student, and most of these haven't been shared with the student, so they don't have access. That's why you see the question marks. But had a teacher shared one with this student, they would see a button where they could either read now or download it. But this is just a collection of from a federal repository of digital textbooks. So it's a great resource, but it is only available to students with IEPs. So there's a question about who can certify that someone is eligible for Bookshare? And I'm just saying that basically the law says that it has to be someone with experience in making such determinations. And that's really the only guidance that we have. So again, that's a subject on which you just need to make your best determination. There was also a couple questions that came in about how a teacher can access Bookshare. And so basically, Bookshare books are really intended for the students who are qualified, have a qualifying reading barrier. So, but we do recognize the importance as a teacher of being able to log in and try something out first to see what it looks like. So what we recommend is that you actually log in as the student, just like I'm doing here. Log in as the student, then you can see exactly what they're going to see. You can open up the books and see how they look and make sure everything works correctly. The other alternative is you can add a pretend student to your account for, testing purposes, but that's really the intention there. The intention is not necessarily for you to, have the books for yourselves, but if you wanted to be able to get in and test it, that's what we recommend there. So then there was a question about the reading preferences. And when you add a student, there is that section where you can select reading preferences, but you can really leave that alone. In most cases, it's not necessary for you to change anything in there. The only exception would be if you have a student who wants to download books solely in audio. So there are two different audio formats, MP3 and Daisy audio. So you'll want to select which type of audio format they would be using. That's basically becomes a file that they would then access on their device, their assistive technology device or their other device. Let's see. Okay, I talked about reading preferences. Is there a specific link for adopted textbooks? The only thing we've got about adopted textbooks is in the reading list section here. If you want to search, we have some districts have given us their lists of books, or for example, I'm just going to put in Texas, because at one point I think we did add a lot of lists specifically for Texas. So there's a bunch of Spanish language books. There's some adopted textbook lists here, but we don't have them for every state. And if that's something that would really be important and helpful to you, then reach out to us and we'll see if we can't get those lists created for you. So assign versus download, hopefully I've clarified that. So you assign books to students, then they log in, they can access them with the Read Now button, or they can download them. You can also download them for a student, but we are trying to recommend more and more that you have the student do that for themselves. But if you download it for a student, then you can get it to them on, let's say, a flash drive or some other, like if you download it for them in Word, this is definitely one option for when students don't have internet access. You can download a book in Word format onto and put it on a USB drive and mail it to the student or drop it off if you're nearby where they live, and then they can open it up in Word and use a couple of different features within Word to read it. So that's certainly an option. Hopefully I've covered that. So on a Chromebook, I think you'd have to use Google Docs, and you can use the text-to-speech and word highlighting feature within Google Docs to have the students can do that to have the books read out loud. Let's see. So we'll look at whether we can send out some of the questions that have come in and the answers. We'll do that separately because it won't be part of the official slides. Subject matter textbooks. So yeah, I would say the best way to find subject matter textbooks would be to use advanced search, and you can put in either the title or you can put in a word that maybe you think should be in the synopsis, like U.S. history. And again, you can just reduce it to just those NIMAC source textbooks, but those are, again, only for students with IEPs. So let's see. Okay, so we've got some subject matter books here. The other thing you can do in any search is you can refine it in different ways too. You can reduce it down to, types of books here. You can sort by copyright date, for example, to get the most recent ones. So you can filter down in advanced search and refine your search. Let's see, okay. Training for parents, very good question. We will be offering something soon, but at this moment, what I would say is if you go to the Help Center and then the Learning Center, on the Bookshare website, we have this Learn at Home during COVID-19, and we have some information here for parents. So we definitely recommend you refer this to them in the meantime until we have a formal training. Let's see. Right, so there's a question about, okay, let's see, we've got a few questions. Let me try to tackle a couple of these here. So some readers, that's correct, some of the apps that read Bookshare books don't support reading lists. And so, for example, Dolphin Easy Reader is the only one right now, I believe, that supports reading lists so that a student would see their reading list when they log in to Dolphin. The other apps don't support that. So what they'll have to do is they'll have to know what book to search for. When they're in the app, they have to search for the specific title. And let's say it's a textbook and we have a couple different versions of that textbook. The student will be able to download the one that is available to them, and then they'll be able to access that way. We're definitely nudging our reading tool partners to add reading list capability and assign book capability to their tools, and hopefully more and more of them will be doing that. So the only other way to do that where they could actually get access to any book, not just the books that you've shared with them, is to give them that full individual membership. So hopefully that answers that. Okay, so question about, is it possible for us to use a book as a lesson, at least in the beginning, to train our students? So yeah, so the way that copyright law works is if you wanted to, for example, if you had a class full of students and you're teaching them maybe on Zoom or in person, and you have a Bookshare member in the class, it's okay for you to project an excerpt of the book, let's say, onto a screen and have the class read it all together, as long as A, there is a Bookshare member that's present in the class, and B, you're only sharing an excerpt of the book. It would be a copyright violation if you used a Bookshare book and the entire class benefited from the entire book, but you can certainly bring up an excerpt that is acceptable under copyright law to do that. So hopefully that answers that question. Okay, we have a couple more minutes. We're actually over time technically, but we do have a couple more minutes. Laura, was there anything else that came in that you thought was important that we address?
I think we got most. There were a couple questions about searching specifically for textbooks. You might have gone over it. I might have missed it when I was answering questions.
Oh, sorry. Can you repeat the question?
The easiest way to search for textbooks, or how do you search for textbooks?
Yeah, so in the advanced search, I would say that's the best way, and that's up at the top under the search bar. There's advanced search, and you can either search by author, publisher, ISBN. You can also narrow down and just search that collection of NIMAC source textbooks. And I should mention too that as far as the NIMAC goes, there are other textbooks in that repository that are not yet in Bookshare. So you can also search for those at nimac.us. I can jump over there real quick and show you what that looks like. You can search for it, and if you've already searched Bookshare and it's not there, you can search the NIMAC, and if it's there, you can actually request that Bookshare add it to the collection, and the way you do that is use the book request feature, which is in the Help Center, and then you'll see it on the left, request a book. You have to be logged in to do that, but there's a book request form, and make sure you note, I'm logged in as a student. Students aren't actually permitted to request books, to go back and log in as a teacher. But make sure and note that the book is in the NIMAC, and then we will definitely get that for you. Go ahead and log in here. So we'll get it and add it to Bookshare so that it'll be available not only for your student, but any other student who needs it. So again, it was Help Center. And this applies to any book that is needed for a student that Bookshare doesn't already have in the collection. You can request it using that request a book link. Okay, and now that I'm logged in as a teacher, let me answer one other question. So I'm going to go into my Bookshare and then go into the members list. And if you've added a student to your account and they've upgraded to a full individual membership, I don't actually have any good examples to show you because I added my individual member students prior to when we changed this feature. But in your members tab, you can tell the students who have the individual membership because it'll say org plus individual. And over here, where it currently says private, it would say their username. And if they had forgotten that, I can remind them. But then if they forgot their password, there's a way here that you can actually help them reset the password. I don't have it on mine because my student members are older before we added that feature, but you can actually help them reset their password there. Okay, so good question. So if you're at a private school, the process for adding a student is different. You actually can't add students the way that I just demonstrated. You have to use a group proof of disability form. And yes, once you do that, you can go in, once they're added to the account, then you can go in and add a username and password to each student account. And the way that you would do that is you can select oh my gosh, my screen is going crazy. You can select the little pencil icon next to their name, and over here on the right is where you'll see where you can add that username and password for each student. And we definitely recommend that because that's how they'll log in and access the books that you share with them. And so when a staff member is added as a sponsor, what it allows them to do as of right now, it pretty much allows them to do just about anything. They can add a student, they can assign books, they can add other teachers even at this point. In the future, we'll be down the road that we'll be deploying a situation that has a little bit more leveled access. So certain teachers won't have the ability to do everything, but right now they can add a student, they can assign a book. But as I was saying earlier about subject matter teachers, what we recommend is that you add them as sponsors on the account, and they don't need to know how to do anything except they can log in as a sponsor. They can find that book that they're about to read for their class. they can select the assign button. So for example, if I'm a teacher, I'm logged in currently to Bookshare, and if I want to, I've logged in. I know that my student needs a particular book for a research project or a project that we're working on. So I'm just going to try to pull up a book here that I know my student needs, and then here is the book, and I can select that assign button and just pick the one student that I have responsibility for, and assign that book to that student. So that's one of the reasons we recommend getting all of the teachers who might support a particular student on Bookshare as sponsors, because then they can assign books easily to those students, and it doesn't have to all fall on the one person. Okay, as a new member, you've never chosen a book, and if you need help, how do you ask? So you can always email us any questions that you have at support@bookshare.org. But we have lots of ways to search for books, you can search for a title of a book, you can browse our collections, you can use advanced search to search for books and refine your search that way. So a number of different ways to do that. And I think we are out of time. So as we mentioned at the outset, though, we're recording this, and we'll send out a link to the recording. We'll send out the slides, which will have a lot of links in them that you can access. I showed that slide earlier. This one here, these are all links to either videos or guides that can show you how to do all these different things. And another quick thing I want to point out, actually, while I have you, is
Christine, actually, the slides are showing, not the website.
Yeah, I was trying to show the slide.
Okay.
Now I'm showing the website. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So the one thing I wanted to show for teachers is under the Help Center, and then under Learning Center, the Educators Get Started guide right here at the top is a great resource that will walk you through how to get started with Bookshare. So we definitely recommend that. Laura, any last questions we should take before we finish here?
No, that's about it.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for being part of our Bookshare 101 today. I hope you found this information helpful. And again, if you have questions, feel free to email us at support@bookshare.org. And you can get started today by going to bookshare.org and selecting sign up. More than likely, you'll select organizational and sign up as an organization. You can use this Educators Get Started guide here to walk you through the steps of that. Definitely add your students, definitely assign usernames and passwords to them, assign books to them, then help them get those full individual memberships for complete access to the collection. And then they can log in to their Bookshare accounts within a number of different apps and access the books that you've either shared with them or books that they can find on their own. And hopefully that will lead to much happy reading this year. And we appreciate all of you being with us, and best of luck, and let us know how we can help. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great day and a great rest of the school year.